Here's how you can sell your high ticket offers in bulk without having to get a bunch of sales calls. Now, if you're currently going on LinkedIn hoping that you're going to land more high ticket sales, and maybe you're sending cold emails, cold calling, maybe you're sending cold DMs or whatever the case might be, and it still feels like it's very hard or challenging to get people to have not just positive replies, but to actually end up on a call with you. And maybe you hate the whole sales process because you feel like you're being salesy or spammy, or you don't want to be rude and interrupt someone's day. And what if they reject you? What if they say no? So because you already have all these feelings about that process, you don't do it, and then you feel like a failure, and yada yada yada. If that is the current life that you're living with your business, I promise you there's a better way. When I started my online journey a few years ago, that's exactly how I was. When I quit my job at a marketing agency, I went all in on my coaching business. I didn't really have recurring revenue yet. I had barely had, you know, like the last 6 months of coaching. So I knew what I was doing, but I had still no real clients in my coaching business. But I decided to take the leap of faith. I went all in on my coaching business. And the first month, I because I was doing back then DM, like doing appointment setting via DMs, and sending cold outreach and stuff like this is back in like 2021. Back then this whole strategy was still pretty new, right? It wasn't like overly used. The pandemic accelerated things, of course, but not a lot of people were prospecting you via DMs just yet. And there was also not a lot of like barriers. Now you can only send 20 DMs a day and all these different things. So from the very, very beginning of this whole thing, I was sending DMs, I was on Instagram, I was on Facebook, I was on Facebook groups, I was prospecting people left and right, and I ended up managing to schedule 91 sales appointments. At this point, I had zero sales experience. All I knew is that I had a coaching offer, and I wanted to make money online, and I didn't want to work at my job anymore, and I knew how to get people on a call. That's all I knew. Now, we were getting on the call to talk about business, right? How I can help them in their through a coaching program or whatever the case might be. I didn't really know that I had to qualify them. That was mistake number one. Did not know I had to qualify. Now, in 30 days, I had 91 sales calls. I had $0 closed. Imagine how self defeating that is. Imagine how, like, honestly, how frustrating. I had burned out. I felt like I gave it my all and I still felt like a failure. I felt like I did not have a single client purchase, a single lead purchase. Does my offer suck? Am I horrible at sales? What am I doing wrong? Right? I was literally ready to throw in the towel, but I just knew but at the same time I had already burned the boats because I had quit my job. So now what am I going to do? So I had to figure it out. I had to make it work, and I had to be willing to think out of the box and pivot. So instead of having another month of one sales calls, instead I decided to go against my coach's advice. My coach kept saying, do a webinar VSL, and post content to attract people to your VSL, and also keep doing the DMs and reach out to everyone opting into your VSL. I'm not running ads. He's telling me don't run ads yet. We don't need to run ads yet, nor could I afford to run ads. And so he's telling me all this advice, and everything I'm doing, I just felt like, is it me? Do I not have sales experience? What's wrong? What am I doing wrong? So I decided to take a whole other approach, and I was like, well, what if I launch a boot camp? And keep in mind, my coach wasn't cheap. $20,000 a year, right? So like I'm following this advice even though he is absolutely amazing. I still have a lot of respect. That advice for me was not working. I had to find my own way. So I decided to launch a 5-day boot camp. When I brought the idea of the boot camp, he was like, "Oh, well, it should be 28 days." I was like, "What?" No, 5 days. So I stuck to my guts with this. I was like, "It has to be 5 days. I'm going to structure it this way. I'm going to do it this way, blah blah blah." Right? If you guys have been seeing my posts in the last 2 days, you've seen the whole thing. You've seen my progression. I only do these a handful of times a year, and it generates an additional income. And if this is something that, like, for example, the way that I do the coaching, it's not necessarily the main business, right? I have other AI businesses, but it's something that is additional on the side, and it's passive, takes a couple of hours a week to actually maintain. So if you're in that situation where you're trying to leave your 9 to 5, or you're trying to launch something without it being overly complex, you don't want to do an agency or anything like that. You just want to create a little bit of passive income, and you can generate 6 figures with something like that annually, fairly easy. Then this is something like that, right? So fast forward to my whole, as you can see in the last couple of posts, I start talking about like my journey and my experience and how I made it successful and all these different things. After all of these like boot camps start becoming pretty successful, he ends up telling me, if it wasn't for your intuition and pretty much like the confidence in saying it has to be 5 day boot camp and this is what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna charge for it and blah blah blah. Right? He was just like, this would have never happened. You probably would have kept doing what I was telling you. So this is like the power of just because you have a coach, you still have to trust yourself. You can't delegate your thinking to someone else. Your coaches, your mentors, they're gonna want what's best for you, but you still have to try it out for yourself. You still have to put it into practice. You still have to do it yourself and then see what works and see what doesn't. And in this case, this worked for me. So I ran with this. And every single time that I've said, let me try the other strategies, they don't work nearly as good as this. And with the time freedom, right? Because the other strategies, they make you a slave to your calendar. You got to get on sales calls. Now you have to get on calls. Now you have to talk to people. Hour-long calls that might lead to nothing, or maybe they lead to something. Who knows? There is one thing though positive that came out of that: 91 sales calls in 1 month, $0 cash collected. But my ICP, I knew inside out. I knew their pain points. I knew their goals, their aspirations, their dreams, their challenges, solutions, everything they've tried. I knew it inside out. So on that case, my market research was on point. And if you have no idea who your ICP is, I recommend getting on calls with people. Understand what they're going through. What are their pain points, their challenges, their goals? How can you help them? Okay, so here's the most common FAQs I've been getting the last couple of days. As I've been posting about this whole bootcamp thing, I had no idea there was so much demand for this, but oh my gosh, the amount of questions and DMs, I'm both grateful and overwhelmed by how much amazing conversations I've been having in the last 48 hours. 4 common questions I'm getting. Number one, how long are your boot camps? So this depends. I'm going to answer all these questions in a second. How do you price them? How many hours per day? And is it okay if I launch something in December or January? These are the 4 main things I've been hearing over and over and over and over and over again. And I love the questions and I've answered the questions, but I want to make it clear for everybody that's watching. How long are the boot camps? They should be anywhere from 2 to 5 days. You can try more, you can try less, but 2 to 5 days is a sweet spot I found after trying multiple types of boot camps in the last 3 years. Um, how do you price them? Very easy. Anywhere from $27 to $147. How many hours daily? Anywhere from 1 hour a day to 3 hours a day. And is it okay if I launch something in January or December? The answer to that is no. No, you want to launch something in September, October, November. Why? For a couple of reasons. One, we're in conference season. People are already used to going to conferences. They're in learning mode. School's back in session. So by default, a lot of us feel like we're back in learning mode and blah, 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 right? When we wait till December, a lot of people are now traveling. They're going on vacation. They're checked out. The year's over. Some people are willing to go the extra mile to have a successful 2025, but not a lot. So the best boot camps that I've had have always been September, October, November. Now, January, February, they're usually slow months. So my other window that I've also experienced, and I've tried this multiple times, has also been in the March and April. But even that is a little challenging because of spring break and all these different things. Summer, forget it, it's dead. So if that is the scenario, right? Like March, April, May, or September, October, November, those are the months to do boot camps. And those are the ones that I've found are also the most profitable and the best turnouts. So you can test it. It might be different for you and your audience. You don't know until you test, right? But to give you a proper answer into how much exactly, how many hours exactly, how many days exactly, what day exactly, etc., 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 the answer is really it depends. I've given you ranges that I've tried and tested in, but there is no magic number. The whole thing depends on your overall strategy, which means it depends on your desired outcomes. All right, so here's one thing that I can share for you that's more concrete without really knowing your whole situation. If you are planning to launch a boot camp, 3 common mistakes to avoid: thinking that it's too easy. There's a lot of people that think just because I'm making it sound easy in the last couple of posts, there is nothing easy about that. I promise you, I guarantee that. It's taking me 3 years to perfect. There is nothing easy about it. I make it sound simple, but trust and believe it is not easy. All right, it takes a lot of strategy, preparation. Oh my gosh, the amount of little nuances that you have to know, and all these like expert tricks that you have to know, and all of these different things that add up, and the strategies and everything that you have to use in every scenario so that it increases your overall conversions. Otherwise, you're just selling a low ticket product with no end goal in mind, right? Now, the whole purpose of a bootcamp is to help you upsell into your high ticket offer, whether that's $997 or $20,000 or more. In this case, it doesn't really matter like what exactly you're selling. You just must have something to sell in the back end. Now, here's another pro tip. That thing that you're selling in the back end will dictate what your bootcamp is about. So you can't just sell random things and thinking that it's gonna be streamlined. There is a whole method to the madness. And the other mistake that I see people do whenever I've like showed this to people, I'm like, just do a boot camp. I immediately see people go on Eventbrite and start an Eventbrite page and think that they're going to get bootcamp subscribers. No, 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 no. That is a no. Do not go on Eventbrite. You need funnels, you need systems, you need automations, you need email marketing campaigns. There is so much. You need a content strategy. There is so much preparation and planning and everything that is required in order to have. But this is why, if you have all this in place, that is how you can generate clients in bulk, right? It's not necessarily like do a boot camp, you're going to have magically all these clients wanting to buy it. There's still a lot of strategy that goes into place. There's still how you present your offer, how you pitch your offer, when are you going to pitch your offer. There are so many little things and factors that you have to think about that not anyone is like, there's not nearly enough. um I think way too many people think about how easy it sounds that they don't realize how much strategy is required in every little step of the process. And if you don't have a high converting offer stack, then how do you know it's going to be profitable? You might just spend 5 days of your life not gaining much other than like a couple $100 from your front end sales. If you want it to be profitable, everything is strategy. It's very strategic. You also have to understand buyer psychology. You have to understand the whole self methodology of how you're going to upsell people in a way that feels organic and it feels like it feels very streamlined, right? That it's just next logical step for them to take. So, like I said, it's taken me at least 3 years to perfect this. I've had boot camps with upwards of 700 people and as little as two. I've had upwards of 700 when I barely had audience. I used a lot of audience hacking strategies, and that's why it worked so well. And I've had it as little as two, just to show you that you can still fail with this. You can still fail miserably. You know how uncomfortable it was to sit with two people for a whole entire week in a boot camp? It was the most uncomfortable thing I've ever done in my life. For them, it was awesome because they got all this one-on-one time. But for me, it was like, oh my gosh, this is so uncomfortable because it's supposed to be a whole event. And it's like all of a sudden I throw my party, my virtual party's happening, and no one but me and two people show up. Oh my gosh, what a disaster. So there is a method to the madness. It's not as easy as I'm making it sound. There is a lot of strategy. I have simplified it a lot. And with AI, we have figured out how to make this even faster, smoother, and simpler. But when done correctly, what's most important is that the people that are coming to your boot camp, you can have at least 30% conversions in the back end. Imagine in a 3 to 5 day or 2 to 5 day period where you're spending 1 to 3 hours a day on a session and you sell one to many, and all of a sudden you get 20-30% of those people on board into your high ticket offer without getting on a single sales call. You know how powerful that is? That changed my life. It really changed my life. It changed my perception of sales. It changed my perception of high ticket sales, and it changed my perception of thinking that I have to get on calls and be really good at objection handling and be really good at understanding the whole sales process and be a really great salesperson. Changed my entire perception. Once I figured out how to sell one to many and upload my clients in bulk to my high ticket offers, the game changed. And that's exactly what I would like to help you do. So if you want to launch your bootcamp this fall and you want to shortcut the past 3 years of my life, really, that I've been in trial and error, testing, investing, you have no idea how many times I've invested into coaches, consultants, funnel builders, all these other strategic people to help me perfect the process. I've invested way too much time, energy, and money into this. So if you would like to shortcut your bootcamp launch, and if you would like for me to actually set up your funnels, your strategy, all of that for you with one simple process that literally is proven to work, shoot me a DM, right? I'm down to help a couple of people this fall. However, again, going back to the whole thing that I was saying earlier, this is something that if you are serious about doing, it's not something that you can do in December or January. It's just gonna the turnout, it might not be as strong. So if you're trying to have a strong end to 2024, having a boot camp in the next 2 months, highly ideal, highly recommend. Shoot me a DM. We'll talk a little bit, figure out if it makes sense for you or not, figure out if there's a fit. Only helping a handful of people. I already got two on board, so I unfortunately I don't have capacity for more than just a handful. So hit me up, let me know. First come, first served. All right, thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll reply to your questions in the comments.